Hello and welcome to Grognard's Solo Gaming. I am the Grognard and today we are continuing with Curse of Strahd. And I don't think I have much to say, except that Ireena is going to gain 1 level of Warlock, and she is going to lose 1 level of Exhaustion, bring her down to 1 level of Exhaustion, and her hit point maximum is going to go up to 75%. And all of this is going to happen as soon as she has a long rest. And so I am going to take one of these gold coins, I'm going to put it on the long rest square here, so that hopefully that is going to remind me that when there is a long rest, then she's going to level up. But I'm not going to do that on camera, but I'm going to do that until the next session instead. And with that out of the way, we can just jump right back in where we left off. And that would have been in Vallaki, and with the well part of the party, that would be Friedrich, Janosch, Gottlieb and Gottfried. They all ventured away from the Church of St. Andrel in order to find Henrik van der Voort, the coffin maker who they managed to find out was the person that had been given the bones of the saint that were stolen by the gravedigger Milivosh. And Friedrich just used his Order Domain Cleric ability to charm Henrik van der Voort and get him to open the door to his shop. Because the charm ability only works for 1 turn, the charm is going to wear off pretty much as soon as Henrik opens the door. And at that point, Friedrich is going to shove him inside. And let's have that be an attack. So Henrik van der Voort is a commoner, so he has an AC of 10. So let us have Friedrich make an attack roll to shove him to the ground. A 10, that would be a success. Henrik van der Voort falls to the floor, and the party, they are going to be quick to move inside and close the door behind them. So Friedrich is going to point his mace at Henrik's face, and he is going to say that they know that he has the bones and that they demand that he hands them over. And in the adventure, it says, if the characters break into the store, Henrik offers no resistance. He tells them where to find the bones in the upstairs bedroom, wardrobe area, and N6E, and the vampire nest in the upstairs wood storage room area, N6F. And that is very good and lucky, because if you know this adventure, then you know that this is one of those places where it's quite easy to end up with a TPK, because in the upstairs room there are actually 6 vampire spawns hidden in boxes. And well, you might have, if you knew about that, you might have wondered why I split the party as they were going to this place. However, it doesn't really matter. Even this pretty efficient party, unless maybe Friedrich managed to use Turn Undead so that the party only had to fight a few of them, even then it's a very dangerous fight. So it's quite lucky that they get this information, because of course Friedrich, well, they are all going to want to destroy the undead because they are heretics. However, Janosch and probably Friedrich as well realizes that 6 vampires or vampire spawn, it's not a fight that they want. So that means that they are going to have to get upstairs and get the bones without alerting the sleeping vampires, because they came here during the daytime. That means the vampires are sleeping, but also because there is no proper sunlight in Barovia, they cannot feel safe. So what they are going to do is that they are going to ask Janosch to sneak upstairs and get the bones, and then they are going to have to think about some way of potentially dealing with these vampire spawns at a later time. So let us have Janosch attempt to sneak upstairs. So I will take a picture of this and I will create an overlay so that you can follow along. But I am going to say that, well, it is most likely because looking at the ground level, the party probably entered from the east, and that means that they are now inside of A, which is the coffin storage room. And that means that Janosch is going to have to sneak up the stairs, and then he is going to have to go into room D, which is the kitchen. And then from the kitchen, he's going to be able to enter Henrik's bedroom, and that is where the bones are located. Right. So there is no actual roll to use stealth to avoid detection from the vampires during the daytime while they're sleeping. So, but I am still going to roll, because if he rolls a nat 1, and you will know that I roll a lot of nat 1s, then we are going to have a potentially dangerous situation. Though again, Henrik van der Voort is at home and he's working probably in his workshop here. So it's not as if though the vampires really have any reason to believe that there are intruders in the house, really. But because I said I was going to make the roll, I'm going to make the roll. So here goes the stealth roll for a Janosch. A 6, that is a bad roll, but because of the circumstances, nothing bad is going to happen. So that means that he is going to go up the stairs into the kitchen and into the bedroom. And let's see if there's anything else of interest in the bedroom. Well, actually, let's start with the coffin storage. That is the first room that they enter, because there might be something of interest. Let's see. The first room, coffin storage. Arranged haphazardly about the floor of this musty L-shaped room are 13 wooden coffins. Okay. Then Janosch, he's going to go up the stairs and then he's going to enter D, which is the kitchen. This kitchen contains a square table surrounded by chairs and shelves of provisions. Well, there's not anything there. There is nothing there that he's interested in, so he is going to continue to E, Henrik's bedroom. This modest bedchamber holds a cot and several well-made pieces of furniture, including a table, a padded chair, a bookshelf, and a wardrobe. Henrik sleeps here at night and well into the morning. The bookshelf contains a handful of storybooks and carpenter's manuals that have been handed down from previous generations. Treasure. The wardrobe in the southeast corner has a secret compartment in its base requiring a successful DC 15 wisdom perception check to find. Well, that would be unless they had been given the information about where the bones are located, so there is no need for Janosch to make that roll. Inside the compartment are 2 sacks, a large one containing the bones of St. Andrel and a small one containing 30 silver pieces and 12 electrum pieces. All of the coins bear the profile visage of Strahd von Zarovich. At first I thought the 30 silver pieces that was a reference, but then these 12 electrum pieces came in and they ruined it. It would have been better if it was only the 30 silver pieces, in my opinion, but never mind. So Janosch is going to take the sack containing the bones, and he is going to leave the other one containing the coins. He isn't there to rob this person, even though he probably counts as a heretic, and he could do what he likes. So then let's see. Well, the party, they are going to be going back to the church with the bones, but the question is, what are they going to do about Henrik van der Voort? Well, thinking it through, Friedrich and Janosch, they're going to reach the conclusion that if they leave the coffin maker here, then as soon as the sun goes down, the vampire spawns, they're going to wake up, and they are going to potentially find out that the bones are missing from the shop. And if that is the case, then they are going to ask Henrik where they went to, and he's going to tell the vampire spawn that it was the party that took them, reclaimed them. And that means that they can either bring the coffin maker with them to someplace, but that means being seen around town with him, and they don't really want that situation. And they also don't want the vampire spawn to know that it was specifically they that reclaimed the bones. So what they are going to do is that Friedrich is simply going to give Janosch a signal, and then he is going to stab Henrik van der Voort in the back with his silver short sword while covering his mouth, and then he's going to drag him off to one of the coffins, and they're going to open the coffin, and they're going to leave the dead Henrik van der Voort in one of his own coffins, and then they are going to leave his shop. So there is something that I realized after a last session, and that is that every chapter, well, part of the adventure, every location has a few special events that might happen, such as the night hag showing up in the village of Barovia. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to look through the special events for Vallaki, and then I'm going to think about if any of those are about to happen sometime soon, perhaps even right now, as the party is on their way back to the Church of St. Andrel. So let's see. All right. So here are the special events. And the first one is the Festival of the Blazing Sun. And the Festival of the Blazing Sun takes place 3 days after the characters first arrive in Vallaki. So that is obviously not yet. And then the next one is called Tiger. And it takes place during the Festival of the Blazing Sun. So it's also not something that is going to happen anytime soon. And then there is this one called Lady Wachter's Wish. And that is something that can happen now, actually. And then finally there is St. Andrew's Feast, and that is something that happens if the players fail to return the bones to the Church of St. Andrew. So that's not going to happen at all, probably. I mean, anything can happen, basically, but most likely that is not going to happen at all in this version of this adventure. So, Lady Wachter's wish. Ernst Leinak begins shadowing the characters. Characters who have a passive wisdom perception score of 14 or higher, they notice him doing so. If they confront him, he claims that he keeps a watchful eye on all strangers, though he doesn't mention the name of his employer. If the characters threaten him, he backs off and reports to Lady Wachter after he believes he is not being watched or pursued. Lady Wachter is looking for powerful allies to help her oust the burgomaster. If Ernst tells her that he thinks the characters fit the bill, Lady Wachter has Ernst or her sons invite the characters to a private dinner at Wachter House. During the dinner, Lady Wachter determines whether the characters have the ability and the resolve to crush the Baron. If the characters refuse her invitation, or if they profess to be enemies of Strahd, Lady Wachter marks them as her enemies and sets out to destroy them without incriminating herself. Okay, well, that was a lot of information, but for right now, let us say that Ernst Leinak, he starts shadowing the party as they are going back. So let's find out if anyone has a wisdom perception score, a passive wisdom perception score of 14 or higher. So it turns out both Friedrich and Janosch have a passive perception of more 14 or higher, but Janosch has a passive perception of 15 and Friedrich has one of 16. So they are going to spot this Ernst Leinak as he is following them on their way back to the church, and let's see what they're going to do. First of all, I'm going to ask the yes-no coin if Ernst was there already as they came out of the coffin maker's shop. Because if he saw them enter, then they are going to be much more interested in dealing with him and, possibly silencing him. So let us see. Was he there already as they were exiting the coffin maker's shop? Yes, he was. And that's potentially bad for Ernst Leinak. The first thing that comes to mind is that the party would go around the corner and then they would split in half, so that perhaps Janosch and one of the paladins would go around the building, and then by the time Ernst Leinak goes around the corner, they are going to be able to come up behind him. However, the problem that the party is facing is that they don't want to attract any attention because they don't know who this is, but if they assume it's a local person, then if that person calls for the guards, most likely the guards are going to take his side. So what they are going to do is that they are going to do something like that, but they are going to avoid turning it into an intimidating situation for this person that is following them, because what they really want is to know who the person is and hopefully find out why he's following them, because that way they can potentially deal with him later when the circumstances are more favorable for the party. Because what they are thinking is that they probably have some amount of time before it becomes known that the coffin maker, Henrik van der Voigt, that he has been killed. So before there is some kind of an investigation or whatever it is that the guards are going to do, they hopefully can by then have dealt with this strange person that is following them. So what they're going to do is they're going to do this thing where they go around the corner, but then it's going to be only Janosch that does this maneuver where he goes around the building and shows up behind Ernst Leinak. And Ernst is actually a spy. That is the stat block that he uses, so he's quite competent. So even though the way that they're going to do it would be difficult for him to do anything about what Janosch is about to do, I'm still going to roll a stealth roll for Janosch, and if it does not beat Ernst's passive perception, then he gets a bad feeling and he is actually going to stop following them. So let's see. And that is a DC 16 stealth roll for Janosch, and he has a +7, so let's see how that turns out. A nat 20! Oh my. All right. Well, that means that Ernst Leinak has no clue as Janosch sneaks up behind him. So, going back to the event here, let's see. If they confront him, he claims that he keeps a watchful eye on all strangers, though he doesn't mention the name of his employer. If the characters threaten him, he backs off and reports. Right. But, Janosch is not going to threaten him. He's just going to have a friendly chat. And so he is going to find out that his name is Ernst Leinak. And Janosch is probably going to ask who he works for. And Ernst is going to make it sound as if though he works for the guards, the city guard. And Janosch is going to pretend to be naive, and he's just going to say something that the party, that they don't have anything to hide, and that he understands that this is Einst's job, and he's welcome to keep an eye on them, and he's going to see that, well, they are law-abiding, well, not citizens, but law-abiding people, and because what Janosch is hoping to achieve is that he wants actually for Ernst to continue following them, so that when an opportunity arises where they can pick him up without any witnesses, then they are of course going to do that. But for now then, that encounter is over, and it is quite possible that Einstein is going to sort of show up again, and that he's going to continue watching them. But for now, that encounter is over, and Janosch is going to go into the church where the entire party has gathered, and Friedrich is returning the bones of Saint Andrel by handing over the sack to the priest, Lucian Petrovich, I think was his name. Right, so let's look at that. So here we had the information about the bones of Saint Andrel, but there is nothing about the reward or anything like that. So, well, I mean, the reward is that this quite bad event never happens, but then again, the party, they are never going to know about that. But it doesn't say anything about the priest's reaction here as the bones are returned. But, of course, he's very happy and grateful. And he will be happy to look after Ireena until she has recovered. And, well, so let's think, because now everyone has gathered in the church. So that means it is time for them to make plans for what they are going to do next. And they already know quite a bit about Vallaki and some of the key people in this town. So I'm going to have a bit of a think about what they are going to do next, and then we are going to continue. So Friedrich and Janosch, they are going to go speak to Milivosh because he's a local, and they feel like they need a little bit more information before they can start making changes in the town. So the first thing that they are going to ask is what would happen if the current burgomaster, Vaigas Valakovich, if he died, who would take over? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll a d20 to see how good the information that Milivosh has for them, how good it is. And higher is better. So let's see what he thinks about this situation. And a 2, well, that's a terrible roll. So, well, I mean, it makes sense. He's a gravedigger. So he just shakes his head and he's like, I don't know. I don't know anything about the politics of this town. Okay, so then they realize that they're going to have to talk to someone who has more of a clue, and that means that they are going to talk to the priest. They didn't want to do that because they realize that he is potentially, well, allied or loyal to the burgomaster, but they have little choice. And for the priest, I'm actually not going to roll anything because he would know how these things work. And what he is going to tell Friedrich and Janosch is that if the Baron is killed or for some reason unable or unwilling to do his job, then it would go to his wife, and her name is Lydia Petrovna. And if that wouldn't work out for some reason, then the title of burgomaster would go to his son, who is named Viktor Valakovich. And when Friedrich presses him for even more information, then he says that it's quite likely that if none of those could fill the role of burgomaster, then there is this henchman named Isaac Strasny who might take over. But then there is also a noble family by the name of the Wachters. And beyond that, the priest's only guess is that perhaps Lady Fiona Wachter could be rich and influential enough to seize power in Vallaki if none of the Valakoviches were able to fulfill the role of burgomaster. So the party, they know that Lady Wachter is a Strahd sympathizer and probably allied with the vampire. So they definitely don't want her or anyone from her family to be in charge of Vallaki. Then they also know that the current burgomaster, the Vaigas Valakovich, that he is a bit of a psycho and that he has his henchman, Isaac Strasny, torture people and the like. So then they are going to ask about the son and the wife of the current burgomaster. And the priest is going to tell them that Lydia Petrovna, she is a quite nervous and, well, she doesn't perhaps come across as very strong, and he is doubtful that she could carry the weight of leading the town. While the son, Victor, he is a bit of a recluse and well, I don't know if it is common knowledge, but he's not well liked anyway. So with that information, the party, well, Friedrich and Janosch, the way they see it, they would like to find someone else to be in charge of this city. So then, well, they are just going to ask the priest if he knows of any good candidates. At this point, it's getting pretty obvious what they are thinking and perhaps even planning, but they are going to count on this old priest being, well, simply too scared to get in their way or to tell on them. But we'll see, that might backfire. So, having looked through the section about Vallaki, there really are no good candidates from the perspective of the soldiers of Sathramelin for the job of being the burgomaster. So what I am going to do, because potentially maybe the only person that the priest can come up with is one of the innkeepers that are, well, they're not rich or powerful, but they are popular in town. So, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the yes-no coin if there is some kind of a member of the guard that has a reputation for being, well, an upstanding citizen in this town. So let's see, is there such a guard? No, there is not. All right. So then it seems that the only person that the priest can think of that would be someone that a majority of the townsfolk might be happy to see as their burgomaster would be the innkeepers. So let's see. The innkeepers' names are Ervin Martikov and his wife Danica Dorakova. And he is, the only information that he has is that he knows that they are kind and compassionate people and that they are well liked within the community of Vallaki, but he does not know anything about their sort of political views and who they might be allied with or loyal to. But that is as much information as he is able to give Friedrich and Janosch, and they thank him, but they also let him know that he's not supposed to tell anyone about this conversation. And, well, being an old priest, he's pretty wise, so he had already figured that out. However, we do know that the priest is loyal to the burgomaster, so I am going to make a roll to see if he is going to attempt to still somehow get this information to the burgomaster. I don't think it is very likely, because the reason that he had not said anything about the bones being stolen was that he didn't want to worry the burgomaster. Now, of course, this could be a potential danger to the burgomaster. So, well, I'm going to roll a d20, and I would say I don't think it's as much as 25%, but I'm going to say this. On a nat 1, then he's going to give the information straight away. And then on a 2 or a 3, then it's going to take him. So essentially 1, 2, or 3, then it is that many days until he tells Vagas Valakovich about this conversation. So let's see. An 11. So that means that he is going to keep this secret, and the party, well, they don't know, but they don't have to worry about the old priest selling them out. So it is sometime in the afternoon, considering the time it took to travel and to hide the wagons, and then they have been talking to the priest both before and after going to the coffin maker's shop. So, well, from the party's perspective, the one thing that they would really like to take care of urgently is Ernst Leinak, because he knows, well, he's going to, once it's found out that the coffin maker, Henrik Madovort, that is dead, then Ernst is going to know that the party, well, part of the party, were behind the murder. So that is the one thing, and I am wondering, well, let's first find out, because it's likely that Ernst would be watching the party, and if he is, then he is located somewhere outside the church. So let's see, I am going to say that, well, maybe it's not a coin flip, but a D3. If I roll a 1, then he has left already, and he has gone back to his employer, Lady Wachter, to report his meeting with Janosch and that he was found out. But if I roll a 2 or 3, then he is still watching the party, and then he's somewhere outside. So let's see, D3. A2, so that means he's still outside the church. So let us see, even though they have the passive perception to spot Ernst Leinak, I'm still going to make a roll, because now they are looking for him. So I'm rolling for Janosch and Friedrich, who both have proficiency in the perception skill. And a nat 1 and a 12. So the nat 1 means that Friedrich has no clue, but Janosch gets over 16, which I think was the DC, or maybe it was 15. Well, either way, he succeeds. So that means that he's able to spot Ernst Leinak. And then what he's going to do is that he is going to take one of the paladins and Seraphine, and they are going to, I wonder if there is a back door to the church. Perhaps not. The adventurers ask to use the map for the church in the village of Barovia, if needed, and if I take a look here, then there are no doors leading to the chapel area. So that means that they have no choice but to leave the church through the front doors. So, then they're going to do that. So then what they are going to do is that instead Friedrich and the paladins, they are going to leave through the front doors. And then Janosch and Seraphine, they are going to try to sneak up on Ernst from behind. So let's see. I'm gonna let Janosch make the roll because he, even though Seraphine technically would make it more difficult for him, I'm just gonna roll and see. So stealth roll for a Janosch. A 6, that is not quite good enough. Now they did already talk, so perhaps he is not scared when he sees Janosch and Seraphine approaching him, but I am going to roll some sort of a skill roll for Ernst to see if how he acts. And it's just sort of, does he understand that he is in potential danger? So higher is better for Ernst. A 19, okay, so he is able to realize that the situation has changed, and what he is going to try to do is that he's going to try to run away simply. The party, they do not, technically it would be just Janosch and Seraphine. They don't want to cause a scene, they don't want to attract attention, so they are going to let him get away. However, Janosch is going to try to follow him, and it's going to be quite a difficult roll. Maybe I should just make it an opposed roll. So let's make an opposed stealth versus perception roll. And if Janosch beats Ernst by 5 or more, then he is able to remain undetected, and Ernst is going to feel safe enough that he is actually going to go back to Wachterhaus, and that way he's going to reveal to Janosch, Janosch is going to be able to figure out who lives in that house, and that way he's going to know who Ernst actually works for. But that is if he is able to beat Ernst by 5 or more, so let's see. So Ernst has a +6 and Janosch has a +7, so Janosch gets a +1 in total. A 19 versus a 9. Wow, that means Janosch beats Ernst by 11, so that was a really good roll for him. So that means that Janosch is able to follow Ernst all the way to N4, which is Wachterhaus, and then it is only a matter of time before he can figure out that Ernst is in the employ of Fiona Wachter. So having half failed their attempt to catch the spy, the party is going to meet up somewhere here in the middle of Vallaki, and now because this was meant to be a quick thing, so Seraphine is going to be wanting to go back to the church to look after Ireena. And then the question is, because either they could attempt to talk to the innkeepers now, or they go back and then, because what I was thinking was basically that if they take a long rest at this point, then the first day in Vallaki is over. So the question is, let's say that they decide to potentially stop splitting the party. So they are going to go back to the church and they are going to call it a day, and the day is going to end. They're going to take a long rest, and that means that Ireena feels much better, and also Friedrich gets his spell slot back and also his channel divinity back. So let us see. Actually, there is going to be a change of plans, I just realized, because it's in the afternoon and they are going to rest for 8 hours, taking a long rest. And that means Ireena is going to feel much better. She is going to have 1 level of exhaustion and 75% of her hit points, which puts her at 21. So I'm going to roll another Constitution saving throw for her to see how she's feeling. And this is after this long rest, and then so it would be sometime at, basically in the middle of the night. Let's see. It's perhaps 1 o'clock at night, and let's see how Ireena is feeling. 17, that's a really good roll. So she is feeling quite fine. So that means that at 1 o'clock at night, the party, they are going to collect their gear. They are going to leave the church quietly, and they are going to make their way through the dark streets of Vallaki, and they are heading towards Wachter house, because by now, when they returned to the church, Janosch would have spoken to the priest, and when they learn that Einst is working for Fiona Wachter, then they decide that it is time to take action. So the party, they are heading to Wachter house in order to deal with the heretics, and, well, you all know what that means. But that is something that we are going to do next time. So I thank you very much for watching or listening, and hopefully I will see you in the next video.